Greetings, Orphanites. Welcome back to our filmmaking vlog here at theorphanmovie.com. As always, I'm your host, Jonathan Russell. This time around, we thought we'd do something a little bit different. I asked my wife, Katie, for an idea for a vlog, and she suggested maybe covering things from an acting point of view because, as I've mentioned before, for our first short, I've cast myself in it because it's going to be easier to cast one person than two. Also, I just have the acting itch, so why not? Looking at things from an acting point of view, I suppose first off, just looking at things from a point of view of film versus stage. There's really the main difference is, of course, is that on stage everything has to be big, and you have to depending on the size of the theater, you have to act larger, as it were. I mean, if you're in an especially large theater, then you have to make sure that the people on the popcorn seats at the back row are going to be able to see your expression or understand your expression as much as the people on the front row. I mean, you make your gestures bigger, you have to make your expressions bigger. It's probably a good example that I can think of is a lot of times whenever you see musical numbers on a television show or award show or something like that. A lot of times when the camera's getting close, you'll see these people and they got their eyes open real wide and these big smiles and everything. Well, it's because they're wanting to see the people in the back row to be able to see what they, see that they've got their, this big happy look on their face. And so it has to be exaggerated much more than what you'd have to do for the people in the front row. Whenever you're changing expression, if you slightly raise an eyebrow on film, it picks it right up because the camera can be right there in front of your face. I mean, it can literally, if you want a shot of somebody, the pupil of someone's eye, and to pull back from that, which I've seen in a few movies, I mean, you can do that, but you obviously can't do something like that in theater. It's a little bit different. It's acting large versus small, as it were. And as far as preparation, with the first short film we're doing, as I said before, it's based on a established comedy routine, and it's something that really has to work. It really has to snap. It really has to sizzle. Timing has to be really, really tight on it, and it's something that you can't fudge on the lines. You really have to feed the other person exactly the right line in order for their line to make sense, and for your line following their line to make sense, that kind of thing. What I've always found the easiest way to do as far as learning lines, that's one of the things I've had people ask me about. How do you learn all those lines? The way I find the easiest to do it is a lot of people, what they do is, the same thing, it's repetition. I'll sit down with a script and I'll read through several times. I'll go page by page, and I'll work on my lines for one page, and I'll just do that one page over and over and over until I have my lines for that page, and then I'll go to the next page. I'll do the same thing, which can be kind of a hassle depending on the size of the script. A lot of shows I've done, I've done shows where I've hardly been on stage at all, and maybe 10 pages of script to work on or something like that. And I one time did Father of the Bride, and somebody that was off stage. I was in all but, I think I was every scene in that show. Maybe there's one or two scenes I wasn't in, but somebody actually backstage told me that they sat back there one night during rehearsal and counted the number of lines I had, and it was like over 500 lines, over 550 lines, something like that, which I have always had a terrible memory. It really kind of astounds me that I could learn that many lines. But also one of the things I'll do is I'll sit down with Katie and we'll run lines. I'll have her read the line that comes before mine, the cue line, and we'll do the same thing page by page over and over until I can get my cues and I can get my lines for that one page, and then we'll move on to the next page. Something I've come across more recently, the last show I did, is an app called Script Rehearser, and I can actually use it in the car. You put the script in it, and it'll actually read it off to you and give you a little bit of a ding whenever it's your cue, whenever it's your line. It'll give you a little bit of a pause between lines. So I found it's a real good way to work on lines without actually having to sit with the script. And it's also good because you actually have to have the lines memorized. You can't be reading off the page, and it's a little bit like being in a rehearsal and actually working with an actor, bouncing back and forth. But it's of course, it's not the same. And of course, the app doesn't read the lines the way that an actor would be performing them. I mean, there's one section where one of my lines, it starts off no, 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 and of course the app reads it off no, no, no. It can be kind of amusing sometimes listening to the way it'll perform, as it were, as it does the lines. But one of the most important, probably actually the most important thing that I found over the years as an actor is the realism of a performance is in the small things. It's little thing. Everybody has little tics, little gestures, little things that they do, and I find that if you add something like that into your character, it's something that's going to make that character more realistic. Building a persona for your character is probably the most important thing you can do. A lot of this stuff, I mean, if you know anybody who's an actor, they'll tell you that, oh yeah, he's right about that. They may say, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about some of it also. But from my perspective, the single most important thing is to actually build your character, build your character's background. Everything you can do to make the character more realistic is going to show through in your performance. And I don't know of anybody actually who doesn't do this, but you always draw from your own experience to a certain degree. You might have a character who's in a situation that's doesn't relate to anything you've ever been through. Like when I did the Diary of Anne Frank, I played Otto Frank. I mean, obviously I've never been through anything even remotely resembling the Holocaust in my lifetime, and God willing, I never will. But there were still things that I had to draw on in my own life to try and get at least scratch the surface with the emotion and the feelings that Otto Frank had to have gone through. And the more research you can do, if your character is based on a real person, that's a huge help. There was a biography on him that I had found that was just tremendous help. There was all kinds of information that I'd never known about him before, and I was able to incorporate that stuff into my performance, and even if it was just in a subtle sort of way. Another character that I've played a few times is Teddy Brewster in the show Arsenic and Old Lace, and he's well, insane basically, but not in a bad way. He thinks he's Teddy Roosevelt, and there's all kinds of information, of course, on Teddy Roosevelt, since he was one of our most famous presidents. And I've found through my research that, with the exception of a couple of little things, everything he does and says, that Teddy Brewster says and does as Teddy Roosevelt, is actually historically based. I don't know if the playwright actually went through that much trouble, that much research or not, but that's something I found during the run of that show and the creation of my portrayal of that character. That's really about everything I guess I had to say about it this time. Like I said, if you know anybody who's an actor, they can give you their perspective, and some of this they may say, well, that's fine for him, that doesn't work for me, and other things they may say, oh, he's absolutely spot on. But just thought it might be kind of interesting to give you all an actor's perspective, and this is also some of the things that I'll be relating to actors whenever we're doing our short films and when we do The Orphan. So I think that having been an actor for some time, and the experience I have is going to actually translate well into my directing. I think I'll be able to relate to the actors a lot better. Is that from the point of view of that I know what they're going through, I know the process they're going through, than if I didn't really have any idea of what it was like. That wraps it up for us this time around. If you want to contact us, of course, our email is realorphanmovie@gmail.com. Social media, The Orphan Movie, that's Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Our website is, of course, theorphanmovie.com. You can get information there, and also you can sign up for our email list, which is going to be firing up more once we actually get started into our shorts. Anyways, that's it for this time around, and we will see you next time here on theorphanmovie.com.